All right, a Fox Resort. A ceasefire deal between Israel and her blood going into effect overnight. Benjamin Hall joins US Live with more. Benjamin. Is IT holding? Well, so far yes, it is Brian. There have been a couple of Israeli firings on Hezbollah cars, but they say that has been controlled at the moment. But look, this ceasefire has been talked about for a few months, now it's been negotiated for a few months, and it should bring a 60-day ceasefire to the war against Israel and Hezbollah. We saw celebrations across Lebanon yesterday, and not least because the day before saw the heaviest Israeli bombing of Beirut. Since this war began, the terms of the ceasefire as follows. It will take place over 60 days. Israeli troops will withdraw, and Lebanese troops will replace Hezbollah. The US and France will monitor for violations as well as the UN, and Israel can defend itself in case of violations. Hezbollah have agreed to withdraw north of the Litani River. That's 18 miles from Israel, and that is the same agreement they reached in 2006. With some critics now saying Hezbollah didn't abide back then, so why give them the breathing space now? Many others, however, are supporting it. It's a product of hard work put by the US government and our government and the Lebanese government. I think the essential point to understand is that this deal was enabled by the fact that Israel significantly degraded Hezbollah over the last few months. Hezbollah is much weakened than it used to be. Yeah, and look, there are benefits to both sides here, as you just heard that Hezbollah has indeed been totally degraded. Their leadership, including Nasrallah, has been killed. You remember the pages exploding, wounding thousands of them, and Iran support this as well. They said they don't want to lose really their most important proxy on the Israeli side. The Israeli aim was to get the 60,000 displaced Israelis back home, and this allows that. But also remember that they are fighting on four fronts, and keeping a large-scale operation inside Lebanon is going to be tough for them, and bet of Netanyahu, who said this was an opportunity for them to set back and almost rearm. Whether this leads to a negotiation in a ceasefire. Well, Hamas is another question. President Biden said yesterday he hoped and prayed, and he said he thought there would be one before the end of his term. Hamas also open to it as well, a leadership saying today they were open to a ceasefire, so good news inside Lebanon at the moment. Certainly, for Hezbollah, remains to be seen if Hamas can also reach US ceasefire as well. Right, fascinating time. Benjamin, thanks so much, shows you what strength can do to bring peace. Jim Hansen is chief editor of Middle East he served in the U.S. Army Special Forces. Who does the ceasefire work for? It works best for Iran and Hezbollah, and Hamas may be the odd man out here because Israel is going to go back hard at them to try and finish that war. I mean, ceasefires are good, and this was a result of the Biden administration putting a soft embargo on some of the munitions and other supplies that Israel really needed, so they couldn't fight a two-front war. I think it's a sign of how desperate they are to have some sort of accomplishment in an otherwise dismal set of failures. That's been their foreign policy, but I understand too. Hamas has never been immediately the day of the October 7th attack. Immediately, Israel starts thinking we're going to go into Gaza. October 8th, Hezbollah shelling starts, so the 60,000 people eventually have to evacuate from the north of their country. If those 60,000 can go back, and they can get the IDF a break, what do you think to study for the hostages? The pursuit? And what do you think it means for Iran, who's had their nuclear program damaged and their missile defense destroyed? I think the biggest win for Israel is if their people can return to their homes in northern Israel, if Hezbollah withdraws north of the Lada River, which there was a UN resolution 1701 requiring that, and the Lebanese government and army actually enforced that, which the US can make them. Do we pay them a lot of money? So if we use that money as leverage and force them to stay up there, then Israel gets those about 100,000 plus people returning home. That's great. Then they can go ahead and, as I mentioned, finish the war against Hamas, and then start figuring out what the end is with Iran. Ideally, the people of Iran decide they need a better government and go ahead and remove the mullah themselves. Then everyone can go ahead and breathe a little easier. Jim, it's not a good time to be the grand Iada. Trump's coming to town. Maximum pressure is about to come back. Their air defense has been destroyed, their radar has been destroyed, their nuclear program has been damaged, and they're out of their two big bodyguards. Hamas and Hezbollah are flat on their backs. Not a good time for Iran, that Iranian government. You're giving me all that joyous vibe there. Brian. I like the way that sounds, and the grand I had told the rest of the leadership of the Islamic Republic should be worried. They failed. They put all of their chess pieces into play against Israel in a 7+ front war, and they have failed miserably. They've been no Hezbollah wiped out, essentially their entire leadership taken off the board. Hamas is on its last legs. The Houthis will catch their trouble later, so I think they're the ones now who have to be wondering how much time they've got left. And Israel was light on the places they hit. They hit one nuke site that wasn't declared, but I think they need to be worried about the rest of their toys in the homeland there. Yeah, sometimes you have to have war to get peace. Jim Hansen, thanks so much. I'm Steve Dewey. I'm Brian Kilmer, and I'm Mainlo Earhart, and click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.